Yuji is the next generation of iconic shonen protagonists. He's a prodigy with gifted talents such as his physical athletic abilities and his natural talent to learn and master cursed energy, given that he didn't have any cursed energy to begin with. Despite being such a gifted and talented character who is definitely destined for greatness in his story, he has a simple dream for everyone to die a worthy death. This is inspired by the death of his grandpa when he found out that his grandpa died all alone. One of the key lines Yuji's grandpa told Yuji in episode 1 is that Yuji is strong and he should use his strength to protect people, which he aims to do throughout this story. Despite being so naturally strong, he is still a very humble character, which is why I have compiled a list of 5 moments that shocked the Jujutsu Kaisen fanbase. And speaking of helping people, I start off with number 5 from episode 1 when Yuji eats the finger of Sukuna. Now throughout the whole episode, we are being told the legend of Sukuna and his deceased finger through Megumi and Yuji's classmates. There's a lot of build up to the legend of Sukuna. We had cursed spirits throughout the episode trying to get to Sukuna's finger. Megumi himself explained to Yuji that it's a finger of a special great curse, which is nearly thousands of years old, so it's an old finger of the legendary king of demons. So the build-up is there, but what does Yuji do? He ends up eating the finger in order to protect his friends, much to the shock of all of us, and you can see with all the reactors' reaction to seeing Yuji eating Sukuna's finger on the YouTube search bar. This episode tells us who Yuji is as a person straight away, and in all honesty, him and Tanjiro are very similar characters. They're both selfless and want to protect people. It's like they don't really care about themselves as long as the people around them are okay. That's what matters. So Yuji, without knowing full well the risks involved by eating Sukuna's finger, I believe Megumi mentioned that it's a 1 in a million chance of survival. Despite these odds, he still ate the finger to protect his friends. And even before he ate the finger, he crashed through the window and started physically punching and kicking the cursed spirit. So from this one episode, you can see he will die for his friends, which stems back to his dying grandpa's words in that Yuji should protect people as he has the ability to do it. Number 4 on my list is him losing to Chozo in the Shibuya Incident Arc between chapters 101 and 105. This fight for me is the best fight in Jujutsu Kaisen. It has everything. Fast-paced action with the special curse techniques such as piercing blood, a straight-up street fight in the toilet where all the taps and pipes have exploded, making the fight more cinematic, as well as it being a tactical move from Yuji in order to fizzle out Chozo's poison blood, and the fight ending with Yuji losing. Yuji losing this fight was a shock to us fans because we're so used to the shonen trope of our main protagonist somehow winning the fight at the end. But the fact that he lost just shows that Akutami will not make it easy for Yuji. As Yuji gets stronger, so do the villains. But what's more important is that this is Yuji's first solo fight. Granted, he still had Mekamaru helping him out in this fight, but it's still Yuji fighting off against Chozo. The first solo fight in the series, and he loses. This just shows that Yuji is still not ready to go up against the special great curses. There will be inevitable comparisons to Sukuna, as we saw when he is released how much damage he causes to the city, killing hundreds of people. Yuji is the polar opposite of Sukuna. He is not an evil demonic killer like him. Yuji is a hero who wants to make the big sacrifice play in the story. As we hear from the beginning of the story, he wants to have a meaningful death, so his character motivations are the complete opposite of Sukuna, but he's still nowhere close in closing the power gap as this loss to Chozo illustrated. It's good he lost as it shows that Akutami will still have his characters lose in fights, and it tells us where Yuji is in terms of power scaling against the other characters. Number 3, Todo and Chozo losing their minds and creating a backstory after interacting with Yuji. Now, clearly something is up when both characters interacted with Yuji. They end up with an entire made-up backstory. Now, technically both Yuji and Chozo are related because Kenjaku was also inside Yuji's mom's head, as we saw in chapter 143. So because of Kenjaku, they are technically related, but still, both of these characters still ended up making up an entire backstory. Chozo feels guilty that he wasn't there for Yuji, as he explains in chapter 208 to Yuki. The guy is having a full-on mental breakdown and is willing to die to atone for this sin. Todo ends up making a backstory of Yuji and himself being best best friends in school, so clearly there's something there. Yuji may have some sort of memory alteration ability, which is what the fandom widely believes. We don't know for certain, but what we do know is that Yuji somehow did this. Can't imagine any other character pulling this off, as it was only Yuji who was with both Todo and Chozo when the memory alteration occurred. Todo creating a backstory with himself and Yuji, to this day, still has the fanbase in utter shock. Maybe Yuji will end up somehow using this technique on Kenjaku or even Sukuna. Imagine the backstory Sukuna will make if this were to happen. That'll be jokes, I can't lie. I don't see it happening, but it'll still be funny as hell. Number 2, we have Yuji famously equaling Nanami's record of consecutive black flashes in a row with 4 in episode 20 of Jujutsu Kaisen. And to be fair, he does do another one after as the final blow, so technically 5, but because it wasn't straight after, that's why it may not have counted as 5 in a row. But this feat in itself is massive and demonstrates the monstrous potential Yuji has. Jujutsu users who manage to unleash Black Flash immediately gain an immeasurable higher understanding of the essence of cursed energy when compared to someone who has never used it. Anyone who succeeds in landing Black Flash will temporarily enter a state of increased cursed energy awareness, where the mental process of manipulating cursed energy becomes as simple as breathing for them. This leads to a greatly increased performance in combat, allowing the user to operate at 120% of their maximum potential. So this is the ideal move for Yuji, and we have to remember he didn't have any cursed energy at the beginning of the series, but now is able to do multiple Black Flash attacks in a row, which goes with the theme of Yuji being a special type of character in the world of Jujutsu, as we see him being Sukuna's vessel and is able to control Sukuna to an extent by not letting him completely take over his body. This story makes Yuji as a special prodigy, but still has him lose. As I mentioned before with his loss against Chozo, even the Black Flash, Todo had to teach him how to do it, and then he ends up equaling the record held by Nanami. The story makes his power believable because he's still not fighting enemies by himself, and he is still a prodigy that can learn and develop his abilities. He reminds me so much of Gohan back in Dragon Ball Z. We see Gohan having the ability to survive against the likes of Frieza in his second form and third form, as well as Vegeta in the Saiyan saga. However, just because he can survive doesn't mean he can beat them yet. That is the meaning of potential. This is similar to Yuji, as Yuji can survive against the cursed spirits, but is not at the level yet where he can beat them. But Akutami is slowly building up for Yuji to have his big moment, his very own Gohan Super Saiyan 2 moment against Cell. And finally, chapter 132, Yuji finally defeats Mahito. This fight was the ultimate blood feud. Two characters who hated each other to the core. It's literally Batman vs Joker or Lex Luthor vs Superman. It's the ultimate rival that you absolutely hate. It's nothing like Toji vs Gojo or even the much anticipated rematch between Gojo and full-powered Sukuna. The Gojo vs Sukuna rivalry is more of a dream match for us fans, and I know Sukuna did declare that Gojo will be the first one he kills, but still, it's more of a spectacle fight rather than a blood rivalry. Even Toji vs Gojo, Toji in the end tells him about his son Megumi, so clearly he has enough respect for Gojo to let him know about the existence of his son. Toji was a hired gun for the Star Religious Group. It was pure business between him and Gojo. There was no eternal rivalry between them. But Yuji and Mahito from episode 12 of Jujutsu Kaisen, they have been enemies. When Mahito changed Junpei into a cursed spirit, forcing Yuji to fight against him, Mahito being the one to kill Nanami and Nobara, although Nobara's supposed death is still speculated, but still, in Yuji's eyes, Mahito was the one that killed Nobara. The psychological trauma that Mahito inflicted on Yuji absolutely broke him. Yuji did end up giving up the fight. It took Todo to bring him back up to his feet again, and the action was non-stop. You can read the chapters for yourselves to experience the action choreographed by Akutami. But in chapter 132, Yuji delivers the Black Flash that ultimately ends all of Mahito's cursed energy. But it's not just Yuji finally defeating his arch-rival, it's the words he's saying to Mahito as Mahito is trying to run away like a coward. Yuji says to him, I'm going to kill you. If he comes back as another curse, he will kill him. If he changes his name, he will kill him. If he changes his form, he will kill him again. I got the chills here. This is Yuji's Gohan Super Saiyan 2 moment, and it all came at a price. Nanami and Nobara had to die in order for Yuji to get into this mental state, just like how Android 16 had to die for Gohan to get into Super Saiyan 2. The way he is so serious in his words and actions, you can potentially mistake him for Sukuna, in the way that he is cutting to the chase and is ready to kill Mahito. Normally shonen heroes are the cliche, let's save the bad guy, let him live and reform. But here, Yuji isn't having any of it. He will kill Mahito no matter how many times he comes back. That is epic. And seeing Yuji have this mentality and change so much since the beginning of the rivalry to now really did shock the fan base, but in a good way, of course. Anyway guys, what do you guys think? What's your top 5 best Yuji moments so far in the story? Comment down below and let me know.